The moment you stop working for money, the world doesn't actually change. You do. Most of us spend years viewing early retirement as a finish line, a destination where the stress of the spreadsheet finally meets the peace of the beach. We assume that financial independence is the solution to emotional friction. But after 365 days of living it, I've realized that freedom isn't the absence of pressure. It's just the exchange of one type of pressure for another. Matak. If you're currently grinding toward your number, you're probably focused on the math of exit. And the math is important. But the math is also the easy part. The psychological transition that follows is where the real work begins. Today, I want to share 3 specific things I would change about how I approached my first year. The third one didn't even occur to me until 6 months in, and it's the one that most people pursuing financial independence completely overlook. Most people imagine early retirement very differently than it actually feels. We picture it as a permanent Sunday afternoon. But Sundays are only relaxing because Monday is coming. When Monday disappears permanently, the Sunday feeling goes with it. You've probably spent years running a version of this mental script. Once I hit the number, everything relaxes. The burnout fades, the hobbies take over, and life finally begins. Psychologists sometimes call this the Arrival Fallacy, and the belief that reaching a goal will deliver a permanent shift in how you feel. In reality, financial independence removes your constraints, but it removes your structure too. Work provides an invisible rhythm to your life. It dictates when you wake up, how you value your weekends, even how you justify your rest. When you remove that scaffolding, you don't just gain freedom. You inherit a void that requires active design to fill. The hardest adjustment I faced in the first year wasn't managing the portfolio through a difficult market. It was managing a Tuesday morning at 10 a.m. When you reclaim 40 or 50 hours every week, decision fatigue sets in faster than you expect. Without a deadline, a commute, or a standing meeting, every hour requires a conscious choice. And choosing what to do with your life every minute of every day is surprisingly exhausting, in a way that no retirement calculator accounts for. And this is where the first change comes in. Change number 1. Lifestyle structure. The first thing I would change is how I treated the absence of schedule. In the early weeks, I approached retirement like a long vacation. I slept in, traveled, avoided any structure by design. I thought that was the point, but a vacation is a break from life. Early retirement is life. By month 3, the novelty of the unstructured days had quietly rotted into something closer to lethargy. If I could go back, I would have built what I now think of as a low-stakes framework before I left work. Not a job, but a set of non-negotiable daily anchors. A 9 a.m. gym session, a Tuesday morning volunteer commitment, a weekly project with a soft deadline. The specifics don't matter much. What matters is that the anchors exist and that they're independent of your bank account. Structure is what makes freedom feel earned rather than aimless. Without it, the open calendar stops feeling like a reward and starts feeling like a question you can't answer. The goal isn't a rigid schedule. It's an architecture, a shape to your week that you chose deliberately, rather than inherited from an employer. Change number 2. The spending transition. The second thing I would change is how I thought about actually using the money. When you spend years in the accumulation phase, your brain gets wired in a specific direction. Saving feels like progress. A declining balance feels like failure. That wiring doesn't reset the moment you retire, and for most people, it quietly persists well into the first year. In practice, this means you can reach the number, leave the job, and still feel vaguely anxious every time the portfolio moves. The math says you're fine. The emotional response doesn't care about the math. What I'd change is this. I would have given myself explicit psychological permission to spend, not recklessly, but intentionally. A separate cash allocation set aside specifically for the transition year, mentally ring-fenced from the long-term portfolio, designed to be used rather than preserved. The purpose isn't financial. The purpose is cognitive. It allows the brain to begin shifting from accumulation mode to utility mode without the background noise of withdrawal anxiety undermining every decision. Financial independence gives you the time. Vamos, but if you're too stressed to spend what the life you designed actually requires, you haven't fully crossed the threshold yet. Change number 3. Identity restructuring. This is the one I didn't see coming. Around month 5 or 6, something quieter started to surface. The initial novelty of early retirement had settled. I wasn't the person who had just retired early anymore. I was just a person. And without a clear answer to what I was building, that felt stranger than I expected. Most people pursuing FIRE are aware they're leaving a job. What they don't fully account for is that they're also leaving the identity the job provided. When someone asks what you do, and you no longer have a clean answer, there's a social friction that's hard to anticipate. You realize, often for the first time, how much of your self-perception was built on professional output. Not because you loved the job, but because the job gave you a legible role in the world. Early retirement removes that legibility. And if you haven't built something to replace it, the freedom starts to feel less like liberation and more like a very comfortable kind of drift. What I would change: I would have started this work 2 years before retiring, not after. Not in a forced way, but with genuine curiosity. Who am I when I'm not producing value for an organization? What would I build if there were no performance review attached to it? I'd have invested earlier in what I now call high-friction hobbies, pursuits that are genuinely difficult to master and provide a real sense of progression. In a career, the feeling of leveling up comes from promotions, raises, expanding scope. In early retirement, you have to source that feeling yourself. If you don't have a craft or a challenge that stretches you, the freedom gradually becomes a very comfortable cage. The goal was never to escape work entirely. It was to make work optional. That distinction matters. Because when work is optional, you can choose to contribute to things that engage you without depending on them financially. That's a different relationship with productivity entirely. Early retirement is not the end of structure. It's the beginning of self-directed structure. We need a different frame for what financial independence actually delivers. Not retirement in the traditional sense. Something closer to time sovereignty. The ability to allocate your hours according to what you value, rather than what you're obligated to. That's worth building toward. But it comes with a responsibility the savings rate doesn't prepare you for. There are real variables that deserve honest acknowledgement. A 30 or 40-year retirement horizon is long enough for spending needs to shift meaningfully. Healthcare costs remain uncertain in ways that projections can't fully capture. Markets move in ways that feel different when you're drawing down rather than accumulating. Psychologically, not just mathematically. These aren't reasons to stay in work you dislike. They're reasons to build financial systems with flexibility, rather than systems optimized for a single scenario. If I had to compress the first year into a single lesson, it would be this: the number got me out of the office. The design is what kept me from going back. Financial independence creates possibility. It doesn't create clarity on its own. Clarity is something you construct manually, through trial and iteration, across the months and years that follow. If you're close to your goal, don't just audit your spreadsheets. Audit your week. Ask yourself what you would actually do next Tuesday if money were no longer a factor. If the answer is vague, that's worth paying attention to, not as a reason to delay, but as a reason to start designing now. The savings gets you there, but the life on the other side still has to be built. Financial independence gives you the time. You still have to design the life.